Welcome, welcome. We are live and vivo. The set 6145. My name is Sally Sasson. In the building, I'm your host tonight. To my left, I have Elisa. How are you?
I'm well. How are you, Sally?
I'm good. How you doing? And tonight we have as our guest, to the far left, Neysa De Jesus.
Hello, hello. Hi, Evelise. Hi, Sally. Nice to meet you both.
Nice meeting you, hon. Welcome to the set 6145. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Women Empowerment Month, so I figured we start the month off right and start the day off right, International Women's Day. So I'm asking both of you guys. Actually, let's do the intro, Josh. Welcome back. Welcome back. Please like, share, subscribe to our channel. I was just about to ask the ladies a question. International Women's Day, what does it mean to you guys? So who goes go first, Elisa or our guest?
Let's let our guest go first.
Sure.
Thank you, thank you. International Women's Day, what does it mean to me? It's a day to celebrate women abroad, internationally, domestically, for so many different accomplishments women have to go through. All the triumphs, the defeats, the wins, just on a whole. So today, kudos to women all around the world.
Elisa?
What it means to me is the empowering, uplifting, and encouraging women. It also saddens me because even in this country and in so much of the world, women are still very much second-class citizens, which I just don't understand. With the strength we have, the fortitude, like she said, the trials and tribulations we go through, even giving birth, I don't think a man can ever go through that. And the fact that we're still looked at as second-class citizens, even in this country, right? Because we're back to being second-class citizens ever since Roe v. Wade was overturned, right? Men are never told what to do with their body. So it's to put a spotlight on the fact that we still have this disparity between men and women. And it's enough already. It's a myth. It needs to be debunked. And if you look at this world, and you look at countries where women are in power and they're leaders, those countries are far better off than countries where men are in leadership roles.
Okay. Well, I had kidney stones and I can't deal with it. I definitely can't have children. I'm with you on that one. There's a lot of going on with the misogynistic stuff going on, right? Like with Andrew Tate and this. There's things that women could do that I can't do, and there's things I feel men can do that women can do. And there's not nothing misogynistic about my thought. It's just I feel, there's certain things you guys do better, there's certain things men do better. You guys are way smarter. Why, like you said, women that are in charge why doesn't that happen in the States then?
Because we are a deeply misogynistic country. This is a country...
And it's not women caddy and fighting against each other.
No, we are a deeply... First of all, this country is deeply misogynistic. People always say America is great, but America has only ever been great for a white cis male. It has not been great for males that are people of color. It has not been great for minorities, for immigrants, and for women. So this country is only great for that. And you brought up Andrew Tate. It's so interesting because earlier today, I read an article by a reporter who went undercover on YouTube and TikTok as a 14-year-old boy to see what kind of content, what the algorithms of YouTube and TikTok would target. And they targeted guns and misogyny. She only did this for a week. She had to stop it because she could not believe the type of ads. And a lot of the ads that she was given being undercover as a 14-year-old boy were from Andrew Tate. So
And
the misogyny in this
just
country runs deep.
not to piggyback on what you were saying, Sally, about misogyny, and also you did bring up a point that you kind of overpassed a little bit, and not to definitely not be in harmony with what you're saying, but there are women that are a little catty with one another,
Oh,
right?
of course.
Right? I wanted to just kind of
I
not
agree.
let that slide from that comment there.
But see, the difference is the same way that there are men who have been in leadership roles and in positions of power that should have never gotten there. There are good and bad apples everywhere. The difference is that when it's women, it gets highlighted. It gets put in the forefront. Take, for example, and I'm not defending her. I don't know the ins or outs or whatever. But a couple of months ago, in the entertainment industry, everybody had Olivia
thinking of
Wilde
that.
under a microscope, right? With the drama, they pitted her. She was the director, and she had a supporting role in this movie. I think it was Don't Worry, Darling. And it had her boyfriend at the time, Harry Styles, in the lead with Florence Pugh, I don't know how to say her name. But at the end, the entertainment industry, the media, they pitted Olivia and Florence against each other. They don't do that to men. It's that kind of thing.
Well, the media does they do that to everybody. They pin
But
us
the scrutiny-
Republicans, Democrats, this,
The
that,
scrutiny
that's
and the
just-
questions that they asked her when she was on her press tour would have never been asked for a man.
I agree to a point, but I also feel that women, and we need to have some type of social responsibility of women to women. We are in charge of so much, and yet sometimes we don't use our platform rightfully. And I think that we need to
I
also
agree.
have to take responsibility. And I think that's why. Well, first, I want to thank you, Sally, for having me. Today is International Women's Day, and you could have had so many people here. And I think it's no coincidence that I am here to speak and to just kind of give to have a voice for all women out there. And I feel like it is we're not being responsible, right? Markets are created by us, right? And what are women doing out there? What are we actually doing to impact us in a positive way? And that's a whole nother conversation for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a Bill Burr skit. I don't know if you guys ever seen it. There's a set when he talks about the WNBA. And it's like, you guys failed them. You guys didn't go to the games. You know what I mean? Like, you guys have to have responsibility also. It's two-way streets.
I
But
agree.
Let's not be here to bash men all day.
Yes.
and
No,
bash women.
And that's not what I'm doing.
No, at all.
But
I'm
I get your point.
I'm
I
trying
was
to-
hoping the conversation of feminism was not going to come up today because I feel I'm not a feminist.
Right.
I'm not. I am not a feminist, and I'm proud of that. I'm a conservative, and I feel that does not mean I want women. We need to be equal, but I'm not a feminist. So I feel there's just. I was hoping. Wasn't sure where this was going to go today, but I stand how I stand,
Right.
and that's it. So we can go in more detail if
May
you
I
want with
ask
that.
you?
Yes, ma'am.
What does being a feminist mean to you?
That's a great question.
And second part of the question, why don't you identify as a feminist?
I identify, feminism is it's a loaded topic. There's many different types of feminism.
Exactly.
The reason why I don't identify with being a feminist is because, in my opinion, a feminist is someone who feels they are superior to, and I know you kind of touched onto something else. So I feel that we should be equal. So that's the reason why I don't consider myself a feminist. Now, it does not mean I don't stand with women, but we are not. We're supposed to be equal. So in saying that, we need men. We need men. It's the reality. I didn't make the order. You know what I mean? So yeah. So in those aspects, I'm not.
So you feel that the feminist movement has been co-opted, and so you don't
Yes, I
agree
do.
where their message is now. See, I consider myself a feminist. I've
could
even
tell.
said that I'm a militant feminist.
I could tell.
But that does not mean that I think men are less than. I just think that this world has allowed men to get away with bad behavior, and they don't need. There's really no need for them to be successful. They don't need to really grow or anything like that. You know,
Right.
there's a certain privilege to being a man.
Absolutely. And also, but there is also, a certain privilege of being a woman. And you could look at it both ways. There are certain things that women get away with that men wouldn't get away with either. So I feel, well, first of all, I want to say that I am all about empowering the woman, but from the root up, right? Not just from the ground up, but from like the underbelly of it all. And that is from upbringing, that is from social economic standpoints, that is from, diversity or lack of diversity from different cultures. I am all for a woman. I use that loosely when I say I'm not a feminist, because I do, I guess, have some characteristics of, I guess, masculine characteristics, however you want to label me. But as far as we are supposed to be created equal, and I stand by those things. And as a more conservative of a person, I would say that and my views may not be popular, and that's okay. I'm not for everyone. I'm definitely an acquired taste, and I'm okay with that as well.
Same. I will say this. I think that one of the things that gets lost, I think as a person, we all have our masculine and feminine side. Whether you're male or female, it's a yin and yang thing.
Absolutely.
I think if men were to be more in tune or tap in to that feminine energy that they have, and we could talk about heterosexual male. You have both traits. We all do. And
I disagree. I disagree with you. I feel like there's been too much of that. It needs to stop. As far as that, I completely disagree with you.
As far as you think men are tapping into,
I think too much into their feminine. I feel like it's been overused.
Okay,
so correct.
Let me clarify.
I want to. We're going left with this, and I don't want to do that.
I just want to clarify something. What I mean by that is that, and this is something to defend men.
Right.
In this society, in this world, especially in this country, we do not give space for men to explore their feelings, especially being from the Latin culture that we come from, right? Men don't cry, men don't express these softer emotions.
Yeah.
No, but what I'm saying in general, the perception, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean.
It's soft.
Like we don't hold space, sorry, to let men show their vulnerability. That's what I mean about tapping in to that feminine side. The same way that we have to hold space to let women show their strength, we also have to hold space to let men be vulnerable.
I can agree with you. I definitely can agree with that.
Okay.
For sure.
Well, welcome to the set. 615 coming in hot and heavy.
Listen, I didn't know what I was walking into today. I really didn't. I had no idea what you're going to ask me today, and I love it. I love it. Bring it.
Let's keep going. We were at Brooklyn Podcasting Studio. Thanks to my man Josh.
Shout out to Josh.
So,
shout out to Josh.
Nasa, where did you grow up at?
I grew up in a little small town called Belmar, New Jersey. Very interesting upbringing.
Is that by the shore?
It is by the shore. It's down the shore. Yes, fist pump. Yes, for sure.
So how was that growing up? Because you're Latina growing up I think that's what, Italian neighborhood?
Yes.
Predominantly, yes.
Yes, Irish, Italian back then. I mean, it was interesting. It was a two-edged sword, I would have to say. My mother being from the island of Puerto Rico, raised in Brooklyn, my father being a New Yorican from the Bronx, decided to, once my mother's my grandparents decided to leave Brooklyn to go, it wasn't down the shore, but my family quickly went behind them, which is how I winds up being raised there. Two-edged sword, nice neighborhood, got us out of, the borough, so to speak, into a quiet neighborhood, safe neighborhood, etc. But at the same time, a little bit of a disservice, to me.
As far as the culture?
As far as the culture, I mean, I had to discover, it wasn't really until college that, I had any type of real diversity, because I craved it for myself. And being the only Puerto Rican in all 4 years of my high school. So it was definitely an interesting upbringing.
Right.
It would have been nice for them to not go so left. It would have been nice to
Right.
go somewhere in the middle.
In between.
In
yeah,
between.
Yeah. Go to
something in
Staten
between.
Island or something.
No,
like
no, that would. No, nobody likes Staten Island.
that. Okay. Oh, hey.
So
I'm just kidding.
there wasn't a Latin community at all.
Not really. Not really. No.
very interesting.
Small tidbits. Not back then.
Okay, and so how was your family? Were they welcomed into the neighborhood? Did you experience what I call, quiet racism? Or like
Overt. Covert.
A little
Covert.
bit. I think I was
covert?
so.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, covert. Yes.
And
I
you're
just-
light skinned, so
Yes, I feel like I've always had like a, I don't want to say like an advantage, even in corporate leader, but I think you can relate to this probably too, having a slight advantage because of what you look like, and I think is messed up, but it is reality, especially being corporate later on and being Latin and. So yeah, I mean, back then, I think now things have gotten more diverse, but it was a good upbringing to answer your question. So I'm proud of that.
Shout out to everybody in the room. Egg Roll, Jamie Rodriguez, Jamal. Hope you guys are doing good. Michael John joined the topics. Yeah, I mean, Jersey, that's a. I mean, we seen the what's the show? The Jersey Shore show. But I mean, growing up here in Bensonhurst, in Bay Ridge, Sunset, Bensonhurst was kind of the same way, where it was like, all right, if you didn't look like us, it was a little bit of a problem. So, your parents came from Puerto Rico to Jersey, or
No, Brooklyn. My mother was Brooklyn, Fort Greene, Brooklyn. My mother was raised
Fort
in
Greene.
Brooklyn.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
shout out to Fort Greene.
Yeah, that's. I mean, Fort Greene is tough though.
Yeah.
It's a good thing they got you
Not
out of there.
anymore.
Yeah. I know now. Fort
Yeah,
Greene.
well, yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Yeah,
right?
we can talk about that too. Yes,
Gentrification, but,
absolutely.
So you went to school in Jersey, or like high
Yes.
school, and then what?
Yeah.
College from there, or
Yes, college from there. I went to a little town called Manasquan High School. Literally a very small. I mean, I feel as far as the answer, as far as the covert racism, I think I was just so I was so sheltered.
Right.
That I didn't even know if it was covert.
Are you fluent in
you know
Spanish,
What I mean?
or-
I am because my grandparents. I went to church and my grandparents were there and they didn't really speak English, so you lose it a little bit. But yes, I grew up English household, but then the grandparents Spanish household, so a mixture of both.
It's funny because my first language was Spanish because of my parents. And what I meant to say, not covert, subtle racism, very subtle. And before we go anywhere else, I'll be remiss that today's International Women's Day, and I did not give a shout out to my Canna Kitchen partners. Hello, Lee. Hello, B. Please forgive me. I love you, ladies.
Shout out to the girls.
So yeah, it's more subtle racism. So going back to what you were saying, right? I'm a curly haired girl, but when I have my hair straight, right, I pass. And I've been in rooms and in conversations with people in where they think I'm white. And this is what I mean, Sally, by subtle racism. And I'll correct them. And
You look like a Russian or something like that. Right? Boruski. Ah, niet.
Niet. But I'll correct them, or I'll let it be known that I'm Puerto Rican.
Proud.
And
That's what's
there's
up.
a subtle shift. Like, I feel it.
Yes.
Like, oh,
Yes.
we almost let her in. She almost passed, you know?
Oh my goodness, I have so many stories on that. Visiting doctors, oh, you're Portuguese? De Jesus, I think they think it's Portuguese, or they automatically.
And then Portuguese
think,
is okay with that.
Right, exactly. Oh my goodness, or even being asked how many kids do I have? In national sales meetings, at NSMs, and being, President's Club, making, millions for companies and getting, President's Club and asking after my award, oh, how many kids do you have? Or you was always having to be, oh my God, but you don't,
You're Puerto Rican with no kids?
You're Puerto Rican. You don't even look Puerto Rican. You're too pretty to be Puerto Rican. I'm like, excuse me? Puerto Rico is one of the most, I've heard it all. So as far as
you should let them know Puerto Rican people
in the world
are considered
That's
the
right.
ideal. So
Yes, absolutely. So we're on the same, definitely on the same page with that as well. So we probably have a lot of commonality when it comes to that, and being told that you have an advantage because of how you look,
Or
which
how
is
about-
ridiculous. But
this is my favorite. When you get upset, oh, the fiery Latina, the feisty Latina, the feisty Latina. that is like one of my biggest pet peeves.
We hot blooded. So,
Yes,
I mean,
it is a pet peeve of mine as well. Like we have to talk a certain way and be a certain way to be considered Latina. And I love your perspective on that and the fact that we can defer, right? Because that's a part of Women's International Day. Kind of like bring that in harmony with that, meaning like all different perspectives matter, and it's so important that we unite and find the commonality, the common denominator, and not the differences. And that's the point.
for sure, definitely. What was your first love? Like, what would you want to study? What was your first love coming out of school? Like, what was your interest?
Well, I won a scholarship for writing. I was published in American Poetry Foundation. Won a scholarship for that, small scholarship. I still write.
Don't minimize
I
it.
still write. I still write. I still write, which is something that it's important to me. Just short stories. And I always have a creative mind, and I did a sunglass line that I created that I wasn't finished because COVID happened. So that was a creative piece I wanted in the fashion world. Just always really just anything creative, whether it's music. I don't have. I wish I could sing.
Right.
I wish I could sing because I'm very extroverted. So I would have been, besides karaoke, can't sing. But yeah. So
When you're drunk at karaoke, I can sing.
yes, exactly.
It doesn't translate.
Yeah, it doesn't. Me in the shower is like, no, it sounds horrible.
Since you're a writer, have you ever thought about maybe starting a blog?
I have. I had a blog in college. I had a fashion blog. But I, just kind of know as far as that. But I mean, even a podcast, there's always a platform to be heard. And so you never know what the future holds with that.
Podcasting interests you? Like, what would you want to speak about on your podcast?
There's so many things. I feel like being a part of so many groups that I have been a part of, I feel like a lot of women don't feel heard. And it's so interesting because you can have a husband, you can have your kids, you can have your career, you can have all these accolades, and the women they're confident women, right? And a lot of them, when you really get to know them and you get to know their I guess their issues or the core of them, they don't feel heard. It's the most simplest thing, actually. It's an interesting topic because you think that you can categorize a person by what they look like or how they represent themselves. But so many times when you get to the nitty gritty, they just want to be heard. It's as simple as that.
And it's interesting you say that because that could go both ways, right? Because there's men that they'll be like, so, hon, what are you doing today? I'm doing this. I got the kids. I got and you're like, okay, where do I fit in that? You know what I mean? So it works both ways too. But that's interesting right there. You know what I mean? There's all type of platforms. You know what I mean? So if you want to do it, just do it. We started. Me and my partner. He started it actually. I had got sick, and I was like, listen, I'm not. I can't do this right now. He started the platform. And
Shout out to Mr. A.
He's in the comments. Says gonna be about to be a cat fight here. A cat fight here.
None of that. None of that. There's only love in this room.
Yeah, but
Love and respect.
No, Mr. A started the platform, and I was like, and then when I was ready to, everything, my treatments, everything was done. I was like, I'm ready to go. Let's go, and we started doing it. And I also did a sports thing for a little while because sports is my one of my first loves.
Baseball, right? Baseball. I love it.
Football, yeah, but baseball is my first love.
Baseball is your baby.
First love.
May I
Yes,
turn this around on you? What's your favorite team? Yankees.
Oh, Yankees. My favorite team.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
That's
Good.
not even a question.
Good.
Yankees for sure. And I was born in Puerto Rico. I came here when I was 8. Didn't speak English, and now my Spanish
What part?
is Santurce.
Oh, San
Okay.
Dulce.
Yeah.
Shout out to San Dulce. It's
Yeah.
all about what part of Puerto Rico.
Cangri.
Gang,
Yeah,
that's right. Interesting stuff.
Yes.
Interesting stuff.
So you went? Did you go to school for design, or you just
No, I went
creative?
to nursing. I first went to nursing. So my mother is still a nurse. My mother
Okay.
is the hardest working woman I know, hands down. She still works now. My mother. So I went to nursing school only kind of like forced me. I felt forced to go because she was a nurse. So I
Right.
went and I really loved the anatomy and part of it and the learning part of it. When it came to the clinicals, wasn't for me.
And NCLEX and all that
Right,
stuff.
right. As far as
it's
actually
tough.
having to forget it. I'm not a caretaker. I know my lane,
Right.
and I'm good with that. Not a.
Yeah.
See, but
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
something very important because I feel that I see so many people in certain careers that it's clear that they shouldn't be there. And the fact for you to be self-aware, like, for example, in the 90s here in New York City, there was a shortage of cops and teachers. So there was a push. Everyone who was going to school, they tried to push you to be a cop and a teacher. And now we're in this situation where we have a considerable amount of people who are cops and teachers who are ineffectual and should not be in that profession.
Agree. Wow. Yes, absolutely agree with that. Yeah, I mean, early on, blood, and it wasn't for me. I was what, 18 when I started college, so I knew right away that it wasn't
That's
that
a
I
big
was
self-awareness.
When I worked in Maimonides, I ended up transferring over to the cancer center, and one of the hardest things for me to see was the pediatric cancer center. I was like, wow, this is tough, and you get attached. So I couldn't imagine like the nurses and all these people being around them 24/7. I know I couldn't do it because I'm like, I'll get attached, And you see these people pass away or something, God forbid. Oof.
I've never worked in the healthcare industry because I was self-aware enough to know that that wasn't for me. And when they were pushing me to be a teacher, I knew that I did not have the patience or the fortitude for that at all. So I was like, no, thank you. I'm going to look into other things.
So you moved back, you moved to Brooklyn.
I lived in Orlando for a little bit. I've lived in 3 states. I've moved to 3 states. And so I lived in Orlando.
I just came back from Orlando.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there this weekend.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So I lived there in my 20s. I actually went to college there a little bit and graduated here. It was fun, great time there. Found community there. And I always seem to find community wherever I go. It's always been important to me to have certain mentors, people that are smarter than you, people that are on your level, and then people you could teach. You should always keep those 3 people around you, at all times. So even then, in my early 20s, I felt that way. And so I lived there for 6 years, moved back to Jersey, and then I moved to Brooklyn. So Brooklyn wasn't until later. But I worked in Brooklyn for years prior to actually moving here. Okay. It was not the same though. Right. I was last living in Jersey City, the Bayonne, Jersey City area, and working in Brooklyn for years since 2017. But then living here was, it's different than going home. Going home after work and everything. So.
And what part of Brooklyn are you in?
I'm in Bensonhurst, the border of Bay Ridge.
So yes.
So I'm familiar with the Sunset. This is my neighborhood.
We're neighbors.
We are, yeah.
I'm in Bensonhurst as well.
Backtracking to Orlando real quick.
Yes,
to school.
yes.
Was it like? It seems like there's better opportunities for colleges and things like that. Like it seems like it's easy. I'm not saying easier, but it seems like more people have access than in the States, in the city. Does it feel that way, or was it?
I mean, I went there. When I went there, it was like, well, it's still Little Puerto Rico. So I loved it, right? Because it was like Puerto Rico, everything was, I was so, I felt like I was home, I was like, wow, I went from this white little neighborhood, Manasquan, to being all Puerto Rico and feeling seen, right? Feeling seen finally. And I love that. I love Orlando, has a warm place in my heart to this day. And as far as college, I guess I could agree a little bit with that. What was
about the colleges, like it's more accessible and stuff like that. And by the way, I just came back. There's a lot of Venezuelans there.
They're not in Orlando, and in Coral Gables. They're usually like in Doral. A lot of Venezuelans in Doral.
They flooded. They're in Miami. They're all over.
Yeah, Doral. I know a lot of Venezuelans. I'm not sure how to answer that question, to be quite honest. I know my experience. That wasn't my experience.
Right. Okay.
I will say that here in New York, the CUNY school system, especially the last decade, has really been trying to make college accessible. They have this program. I forget the name of it, but it's like an accelerated program to get your associates in, where if you're accepted to this program, they give you money for books, they give you money for travel. It's a few things. I want to say it's called the ASAP program, but I'm not entirely sure.
I know that there's, as far as anything undergrad, I would think that there would be same opportunities. I know, but even in New York now, they have graduate programs, but that was never accessible when I was in, they never had any funds for graduate programs, for a higher education. So as far as undergrad, I think it's probably equal, but I don't know. Right. I honestly, I didn't do the research on that.
What was your major in college? Was it real
So
estate?
I have a business degree. No, the real estate thing came
Right.
recently.
Okay.
It only came because of COVID, honestly.
Okay.
But I have a business degree. You know, I have an English literature degree. I have a couple of degrees.
Right. Nice.
English, yeah.
Right. You should be a doctor by now. I got
For
some
real,
school.
I probably should. I should have been. I wish. You know what's so funny that I encouraged my one cousin. She has 4 children. I hope she's watching. And she's a dental assistant, and she can do everything a dentist can do. And I'm like, you need to go back to school. We need a doctor in our family. We do have a few doctors, physical therapist doctors, but we
you need a
doctor.
dentist
We
because
need a
that's separate
dentist.
healthcare.
And she could do it. She could
Yes.
do it. She knows everything. Get your butt back
she's in
in
Puerto Rico.
school.
Or she's here.
She's in New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's right here. A younger cousin. So try to
Nice.
encourage her, go back to school.
Yeah, I think it's
I'd be
ridiculous.
60 by the time I would finish while I was go.
Listen, people are going to school at all ages now.
If you can go back, what would you do? And I'm interviewing you. What would you do?
If I could go back, first of all, I would love to get my master's. You don't get any type of scholarships or anything unless you're doing a research and you're funded. So I haven't gone back because I cannot afford, the $50,000, $60,000. I have my BA in business administration with a minor in social economics. I don't know what I would get my master's in, but it's always been a dream of mine to get my master's.
That's awesome. I feel like I would probably go back to be like an anesthesiologist or something, so drugging up people, going back to that nursing. And
I'm a big academic, so
Me too.
I'm a big nerd, so I love school. I love learning.
Working in the hospital, like being 11.99 older, I did regret like not taking advantage of that because they pay for the school. They reimburse you. So I should have did like
You really
radiology or something.
So, yeah, you're
that's
I
really
should have did
cool.
something back then, but I was supposed to be a pro baseball player. The hell with all that. No, I'm kidding.
Right? That's amazing. I didn't know that we
But-
had that in common. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but so what else? What else you got?
I wanted to ask you, so when you
Yeah,
were talking
sure.
about nursing
Yes.
and you knew that it wasn't for you, is that how you transitioned into pharmaceutical sales, or how did you get into that field?
Oh no, no. So I was working. I thought I was going to be a bank. I had like a million jobs. You know what I mean? Like I'm a Gemini. I don't know if that you matter, but I'm like all over the place, right? And art sign. I don't know if you're into that kind of stuff, but anyway.
Well, you're well-rounded.
Right, well rounded. I was working at a bank. I was working in the drive-through, and a customer was like, you'd be really good at this job. And I was like, what job is this? So that's actually how it happened, through a customer in the drive-through. That was in 2007, 2008. So that was how long ago that has been that I was doing. I started in wholesale frames, working for a company called Marklin. And then it transitioned to the science side later, companies with nutraceuticals and also pharmaceutical products and combining them. So I did that for 10 years, over 10 years.
What is nutraceuticals?
It's pharmaceuticals, pharmaceutical nutraceuticals, except you don't necessarily need a referral from a doctor. It could be kind of like, I guess,
Over the counter?
over the counter. It's not necessarily over the counter, but it's holistic ways of healing. And I'm sure you can understand that.
Yes.
But
My partner Bertha would love you. She's
yes,
very much,
yes.
her and I are very much, even Lisa, into the holistic healing thing.
so they call that a nutraceutical as opposed to a pharmaceutical. So
I
there you
learned
go.
something new
There you go. You're
today.
welcome.
And that was going
Yes.
through like hospitals and things like or
Yeah, so it would still be, you would still need to, the doctor would still write a script, or we would have to find ways to say, you know what, you have, it was, I've always been in ophthalmology, by the way. So it was always in that sector. When the frames actually were eye doctors, ophthalmologists, optometrists, opticians, whoever I can get in front of, to talk to me, I will talk to them. And that's when later on I built my own sunglass collection, and it was on hold because with China and just with COVID and everything, and not wanting to produce it, and the legalities behind selling, because I wanted to sell it on the wholesale, B2B, not B2C, business to consumer. I didn't want to be another Amazon, so that project kind of got on hold. Kind of sorry, just go left. What was it?
How you got into pharmaceuticals.
That's it. A drive-through customer.
And was COVID the reason that you transitioned into real estate? How did that come about?
Well, from like I said, the drive-through customer, I was in wholesale. I'm like, oh, I could do more than just wholesale, the fashion side. Where I did a lot of Javits Center. I did a lot of modeling for that. Then I wanted to do the science side, got into pharma, got into nutraceuticals. Then lost my job during COVID. And I'm like, well, this is terrible. How could they do this?
I was just going to ask you, how was your life pre-COVID and post-COVID?
Oh my God. COVID changed my life. COVID changed my life. I was truly impacted. It was a very humbling experience for me, you know, in many ways, financially, emotionally. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I could be President's Club for, 5 years straight and do X, Y, Z and make this amount of money, and you're going to let me go?
Right.
It's just like, how dare you? How could it's just a testimony to how you ain't shit. You know what I mean? And how we ain't shit. We're just another number. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to get your own. Put your own.
Yes,
right?
exactly. So I'm like, what can I do? I still have to work, right? Do I go another 9 to 5? Do I get under the Big Brother again? What do I do for the rest of my life? I want to be a writer and a singer and live, as a gypsy somewhere, but that's not going to pay any bills, right? So I've been into prayer mode, to be quite honest. I went into fasting mode. I went into, it was not a decision that I made overnight. I literally prayed on it and I fasted over it. And I'm like, lead me, you know what I mean? And it led me to real estate.
Now, you said, what do you practice? What religion?
I'm a Christian. Yes.
No judgment. Yeah. Just figuring it out. Because I've been considering Islam. Like I
nice.
Really looking into it. But then it's like no pork and a lot of things that I'm like, I ain't really give those things up yet. You know what I mean? So
I will say one thing, that I live in, obviously in Bensonhurst. I live in a huge Arab community, huge Muslim community, and shout out, I love it. I feel just super loved and safe, and I love the community.
Nice.
I will say that.
No, they're good people.
You do have to give up the pork, though.
No, there's
pork
not
really
more other
bad
stuff that they want me to give up that I ain't ready for either. Shouts to Jennifer, shouts to Pee Wee, shouts to everybody in the room.
Listen, when I was like 18, I became a politarian, and where I would only eat fish and poultry. And the holidays came around, and I wouldn't eat pork, and like that was the most blasphemous thing to my mom.
Of course.
And
Puerto
my
Rican,
mom's
no
side
pork.
of the family, it was just like a big to do.
Yeah.
That's crazy, yeah.
COVID, right, like you said, it changed you. Now, in the beginning of that, it probably was really a rough patch, right? But you feel like you're on the other side of that now. Like, you know what? This made me just stronger.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we're, Latin people, we're born resilient anyway, right? We're born to jump over those hurdles. And so I'm no different from our ancestors, So yeah, absolutely made me a lot stronger. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to see where I go with real estate.
Well, I think you have a great personality and demeanor for it. Circling back to COVID, I wanted to ask you, because were you living alone?
I was. Yeah, so that's another thing.
Me too.
Single person, living alone. I don't have any children. So I was like, I was like calling everybody like we did Zoom calls. I was, I remember my college friends, we would dress up. I think about it now. Like we would dress up and I'll get on Zoom and have like a date night with it was like 10 of us, and we're all over Florida. Well, some of them are doctors. So it was really nice because we don't do that now, right? So there was some aspects of it that were nice. And thank goodness the community that I lived in, it was a new development building. So because of that, there was lots of spaces to go. It was like you had a rooftop, you had the pool room, you had a golf, it was
You're
like a nice.
lucky.
I was very lucky.
I live
I'd be
alone.
Like, right.
No outdoor space. It was traumatic.
Yes, I can imagine.
Traumatic.
It was so funny because
my son was in another state, so I was worried about him.
Jesus. I was supposed to come it's funny, how things work, because I was supposed to be here then and I wasn't. I was still in Jersey then. And thank goodness, because who knew COVID was going to happen? I was in the perfect community. And we were all knocking on each other's doors. Like, I broke karaoke machines because, anything, Uno, whatever, play, like literally like a bunch of kids. We were like knocking on doors. And I met so many lifelong friends actually from that building that I'm still in contact and that have all moved. So COVID on that way, and that aspect was actually really pretty bittersweet.
And one of the things we did have the technology for video conferencing and those kinds of things. Imagine if we had COVID and we didn't have that technology on our hands. Like the pandemic of 1980. Now those people really went through it.
For sure. I can't even imagine. Wow, yes.
And I would get so frustrated, right, when you would have these people who had a whole house and outdoor space, or these, movie stars that had a whole estate, and then they would talk about how COVID was so hard for them. I'm like, you have a gym, you have a sauna, you have a pool. Come stay in my one-bedroom apartment with no outdoor space. Then talk to me about it being hard.
You know what would frustrate me? When someone said, oh, I love COVID. I wish we were back in COVID. I didn't want to see people. I'm like, are you out of your... I've heard that from people. I'm like, you are a weirdo.
The only thing I liked about COVID was no traffic.
I agree.
Get into the city, get into Hell's Kitchen in 7 minutes, all the way from Jersey because there's no traffic. I can relate to that.
But I will tell you, I was coming out of a job interview when we closed down. So that was, if I'm not mistaken, right, it was March 16th, March 17th, right? So I went into the interview and it was for a private equity white shoe. So it was like 3 interviews, 4 hours. I go in at 1 o'clock and the city is thriving. Then they announced the lockdown, I think at like 2 p.m. I come outside at 4:30. Totally different city.
Wow.
Like that.
It's like
I was
a movie. Like, what the hell happened here?
That's exactly how I felt. And then I'm on 59th and Lexington, right? There's a bunch of stores there. That was a fashion avenue. There's Bergdorf Goodman's, there's Bloomingdale's, and it was dead. Everything was shuttered. I was like, it felt like the Twilight Zone.
Speaking of 59th and Lexington, I'll be remiss if I don't mention Craig Rossick and the Rossick Law Firm, 212-953-1818 for all your lawyer needs. That's the man right there, Craig Rossick. So, did you get your
yes.
For the real estate? Did you do it in Jersey or Florida?
New York. So in New York, I did have my New Jersey real estate license as well when I first, like in 2008 to 2011. But this whole new venture I took seriously. I was younger then, and I was already making money, so I didn't take the New Jersey license seriously.
You didn't capitalize on it.
No, I didn't. I barely. Yeah, I just, a friend had a sister that had a brokerage. I was like, I'll hang it here. Didn't see the use for it back then, but I do now, obviously, and it was in New York only, and all the states that are combined with New York.
The states that have reciprocity. So how are you finding yourself, your place, your legs in this industry? That is very much a man's club, a boys' club.
Here we go again.
Where's the lie?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I agree with you.
Is it good old boys club and stuff like that?
Yes, yeah. I can agree with that. And but also being in outside sales and pharma sales, that's a boys club too, right? So I was used to being the only woman in my pod, or sometimes in the territory, not in the region, but I'm used to playing in a boys club, and I like that arena because I'm a strong closer. No, once I know, but this arena is different because obviously the book of business is different. Understand? It's so much more than 75 hours. It could be a 4-year course because there's so much information that you need to understand. First, you need to understand the legalities and not to get sued and lose your license. Or you can't even say certain words. This is not. You can't even say certain words without literally losing your license and losing your livelihood, right? And also not taking certain clients that are going to like the fair housing laws, anti-discriminatory law. There's so much behind it, and then the learning curve of, well, what do I like to do? Do I like to sell here or sell there, or what do I want to sell exactly? Do you want to Do you want to be an expert in townhouses? Do you want to, which are primarily the most in Brooklyn is in Fort Greene? Knowing your inventory, where do you want to be? Do you want to do, two bedroom co-ops? Do you want to just stay in Bay Ridge and deal with, single family? Or even once you get into it, you start taking all these courses and you're like, well, maybe I want to do the staging portion of it. Maybe I want to do the interior design. Or maybe I just don't want to even do it.
Fits you, no? Because there's something you like designing.
It does actually. And I've taken a few courses on that.
It would feed your creative side for sure.
Yeah. Or so you kind of just have to just, I'm really still in I like the infancy stage. I like that terminology in real estate because I am only not even 2 years in. So it's the baby stage and seeing where I fit and where I would thrive.
What do you feel has been your biggest obstacle in this 2 years?
That's a good question.
That's a great question. In real estate?
Yes, great question.
I feel the biggest obstacle is interesting actually, and I'm gonna tell you why. The reinvention of NASA New York, that has been interesting, and putting myself on social media. Taking TikTok classes on how to do a green screen, like all those things that you don't even, I didn't think that I would have a problem with those things. Being an extroverted person, being a halfway intelligent person that could speak to the public. I was like, I have to be public. I have to be public. I have to put myself out there. I have to do my pillars. What are my pillars? I like to ride my bicycle. I like, pillars that are going to mean something to community, right? It's important so you're putting yourself out there to the public to message you and inbox you and give you their opinion of you. I found that actually super challenging, and I didn't expect it to be.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's also you also inviting wackos.
Locos, inboxing. Oh my God, you should see.
Sure
I need an apartment.
I'm sorry about that.
Listen,
I need an apartment.
when I'm showing apartments, I carry a taser with me 24/7.
Me too.
I don't know who's going to walk in
for sure.
through that door.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Me too.
You have to.
Unfortunately.
It is. What has been the biggest surprise to you, or a misconception that you had in real estate that you discovered, oh, no, it's not really like that? What has been the biggest shock or surprise to you?
Good shock or bad shock?
Both.
One of each.
One of each, yes.
Well, I recently have I have recently just joined the team, and I'm so excited about my choice and their choice of me, because it is a collaboration. It is joining like a marriage, right? So in that process of joining a team, I interviewed with many other teams, and I put myself out there, and there's been some surprising feedback from that without getting into too much detail. But sometimes things are not always done as legally as you would think they would, especially being with such a big corporation. Firm. Yeah, I don't want to. I don't have permission to name names, things like that. Sure. But I will say, I'm like, oh, this is how you do things, and then me being new, like, oh, this is how you do things, and I'm like, wait, but this is not how you do things, So I think those are have been big surprises, and then the good surprises would be how when you talk to successful real estate agents and brokers, how real they could be when you really ask them real questions. And I've been lucky enough to be able to get into people. People talk to me for whatever reason. I don't know why. People do. And they give me information. So I think that is, because I ask as well. I ask leading questions. But I'm so grateful for... So those are some of the good surprises. So grateful for some of the feedback that I've received of how they have been successful and how they continue to strive to be successful.
I think having mentors in whatever field or industry you're in is very important. I want to circle back because I'm very surprised to hear that, especially after the 2008, housing bust that led to the recession, that because of course in every industry they're going to be corners cut and things like that, but the real estate sector, especially houses, is really under a microscope ever since the Fannie Mae Freddie Mae debacle. So it's interesting to hear that
Even 2019, the big hoopla right here in New York with all the agents that were fined and all so not even 2008, 2019, so
I don't think that. I think the show goes on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like Bernie Madoff. You think people are not doing things like that still that he did? It's just the show goes on. It's a different cast of characters, and you get away with what you want. If you really want it, some people just like, hey, I'll do whatever it takes, and I'm gonna make this money. And
That's a good
sure,
perspective.
You're right.
That's
you're
a good
sure
perspective.
right about that.
You
Sure
know?
right. I'm not signing any I'm not forging a signature
Yeah.
on nothing.
Yeah,
I don't want
there's
to be
some-
on your team
there's
if
some
that's what you're
people
making me do.
It's
You
like
know what I
it's
mean?
like in a sports team, right? There's some guys that'll do whatever it takes, and there's some guys that be like, I ain't doing that shit. You
I'm
know?
sorry. I am
So-
not going to jail for anybody. I am
That's
not
right.
risking my freedom, my financial stability,
I think-
anything of that nature for anyone. Don't come to
Absolutely
me with that
agree.
because that's going to be a no.
I'm new, but I'm not dumb.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I was born at night, not last
That's
night.
right. That's right. We can. That's right.
You know? But what do you what are myths like first time buyer? Like what do you think there's like people say, oh, I can't afford the down payment, or oh, I don't have good credit. Like are they mistaken by that, or is that like
It depends. It depends on how. There's so many ways. I mean, there's so many great programs out there to help a first-time buyer. So I feel like we'll do our best, but there are certain criteria they do have to meet.
qualify?
So yeah, do have to qualify and do have to meet. But you'll be surprised what you can afford.
What would
when
you
sit
say
and
is the
talk to
main thing?
someone.
Like okay, like a stick. Like all right, your credit. Or your,
2 year employment. 1 year to 2 year employment, I would say. Nothing else really. Everything else can be
fixed.
yeah. But if you don't have like actual like employment, like
Right.
proof of employment, really you can't fix that. You
Right.
can fix other things and get income from other places. I don't know, but that no.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So like documented employment stuff.
So financial
Credit.
stability, financial history is something that you really can't get around.
No. The short end of it, no.
That makes sense. I mean, I've had friends that have been in the process of buying a home, and they tell me that all their financials get dissected. Like, I've had people say, oh, I can't Zelle you or I can't Venmo you because my real estate person said not to do that because it looks bad because you have to explain things. So
Yes. You do not want to buy anything within 2 months of getting a mortgage of any kind, any kind of mortgage, whatever, fixed, whatever type of mortgage. You do not anything, nothing, zero. Do not open a credit card, do not buy a car, do not buy a fur coat. No.
do not make any purchases that are not day-to-day necessary purchases.
That is correct.
Did your parents teach you financial literacy?
Absolutely not.
No.
No, I did not come from a real estate family, at all. I know that I was taught, a lot of old school, I think we all can have that with our old school parents. You work hard, they didn't teach about stocks and how there's other ways to make money while you sleep. Those are all things that I kind of just self-taught myself. So unfortunately, I wasn't taught that.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous in this country that in high school, there's not a course about how to open a bank account, how to build credit. Like, one of the biggest things that I made sure to do was to teach my son financial literacy, because I know it wasn't taught to me, right? And I think that that's one of the problems in this country, is that these things are not taught. And these are very
Absolutely.
important things, how to balance a checkbook, how to look for credit cards, how your credit score impacts your financial life. These are all very, very important things.
Is crypto and like Bitcoin, things like that, are they big players in the real estate company? Like, do people are thinking like that's the future?
I think people do think that's the future. I haven't worked with any of those transactions though, but I mean, I have friends that are in that do invest in crypto and in Bitcoin, and they do agree that that is the future, and they agree that cash will be obsolete. So, but as far as the real estate market, I personally haven't had any clients that pay that way. But even though I'm sure that there are other agents that are more affluent that have, but I personally haven't.
Well, you got give everybody your socials. We're about to sign off here. Let them know where they can find you at.
Yes. You can find me at NASA in New York, hashtag NASA in New York on Instagram, and also on Facebook, and also on TikTok. NASA in New York.
Practicing them reels.
That's right. That's right. NASA in New York. Come find me.
You got anything, Elisa, before we sign off?
I want to again highlight International Women's Day. I want to give a shout out to all the women in the world, all the women I know. We are fierce, we are strong, and just keep on in the good fight, and always, always try to lift up another woman. Because another thing that's done is that women are kept divided. We are.
Absolutely. I wanted to end off saying, but I didn't want to cut you off with that. No, just end off saying that, you know, we are not what happens to us. You know, we're not our generational curses from our parents. We're not what happens to us if we're in abusive relationships. We're not what happened to us if, you know, there are really serious things that we go through as women that we're not talked about. You are heard, you are important, you are empowered, you are loved. And just to always remember that. And there's always a platform to reach out to. I'm sure that you guys are open up your platform for any person that wants.
Sorry to cut you off. What was that women's group you have?
It's called Life Maps. And these are real issues, you know, real issues, women that, you know, first of all, we have to also, not to go backtrack with real estate, but we do, we sell something that, or we provide something that's the most basic need, and that's shelter, right? As a real estate agent, they need shelter, whether it's a rental, whether it's a their first home, or whatever amount of homes. And there are women that have, you know, been homeless and things like that. There are women that have real issues. So it's important to know that you are loved and heard, especially today and every day.
And fellas, ladies like this are strong, but once you make them feel comfortable, they're going to love you. I thank everybody for watching tonight. Please share, subscribe, like the channel, the Set 6145. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Oh, good.